At some point last week when Bernie Sanders was talking about the possibility of not only making sure that everyone who has paid their debt to society in prison and has now gotten out should be allowed to vote, but that also they should be allowed to vote while they're in prison, that created some controversy that continues to today. And at the time The View talked about it, I actually missed their discussion about it. And there's some interesting stuff in this short clip that I want to show you. So here is Meghan McCain on what Bernie Sanders had been proposing.
No, you should not get out.
But I think he should be given the death penalty. I mean, that's where I'm at with this. People commit acts of terror on American soil.
Does
this include, in your mind, domestic terrorists also?
Yes, terrorism is terror. Yes, of course.
And what about those guys who shoot schools up? That also?
They should, of course, be in jail.
Child molesters.
I'm trying to tell you this. What Bernie Sanders said is going to be turned into a clip that will be. It upset me this morning.
How do you feel about the fact that people in Vermont are allowed to vote?
Abby and I didn't have brothers that served multiple times, and I didn't watch my brother deploy when he was 19 to fight this crap, to have them come here and give the right to vote.
Okay, so like 4 things. First of all, that is a daytime show, and yet it is the most exhausting TV to watch imaginable. I don't know how they make it through a full show that just yelling back and forth, but I want to focus on what Meghan McCain was saying there. Before we get to the voting, I think this is peak Meghan McCain, where she has been, over the past couple of weeks, as there's been all this violence towards both in the US and internationally against synagogues, she's been weirdly making it about herself. And now, the fact that she has relatives who have served abroad, she deployed that exactly how a person who had themselves served would deploy it. That is like family stolen valor. I did not have someone else fight abroad so that this would happen today. That's not actually how it works. If you want to deploy that, by the way, you could have a problem with that sort of rhetorical flourish, even if a person was doing it themselves, but she did not serve, okay? And I did not have lots of other people serve so that Meghan McCain could steal valor in this way. Anyway, so that's just Meghan McCain. She's one of the most important voices in American politics because we live in America and it's 2019. Far more important though is the voting. And so she's responding to Bernie Sanders. Here is just a little bit of what Bernie Sanders said at the time. I believe even if they're in jail, they're paying their price to society, but that should not take away their inherent American right to participate in our democracy. And now it might seem weird, like you might say, well, John, you've been talking about this for a week now, you've talked about it multiple times, why now with The View? Well, the thing is, for whatever reason, The View is an incredibly popular show that is very important in American political discourse. All the presidential candidates have to go there. The things that they opine on make news virtually every day, which is why it's so frustrating when they give people like Meghan McCain a spot on the panel. But that's what we've got. And so I do want to respond to some of it because again, every time I talk about this topic, I am realizing more and more that this is a hill to die on and I'm just going to die. And that there is just something fundamental that is not going to allow people to engage fully in a logical fashion on the argument that all of these people should be allowed to vote. Because the conversation has been hijacked. It has been hijacked in exactly the way I predicted. Literally as Cuomo was asking the question about the Boston bomber to Bernie Sanders, the goal was to hijack it and it has been thoroughly hijacked. And to demonstrate that, let's talk about numbers just a little bit. So you probably know that we have the largest prison population per capita. We have literally millions of American citizens at any given time that are locked up. It is a massive, massive population. Of that population, how many of those people are the Boston bomber? Don't worry about running the numbers, I'll do it for you. It's the one guy. And in terms of terrorists more broadly and domestic terrorists and all of that, even defining that very loosely, will include all of the people who do the mass shootings, all of that. Is that 1 in 10,000 of the people in prison? Is it 1 in 50,000? I honestly don't know. I looked for the numbers and couldn't find them, but it is small. And yet, that's all the conversation we're having about this. I will even go more broad than just the terrorists, because I have a feeling that even if we weren't talking about the Boston bomber, people would still have a problem with the idea that someone who committed murder or someone who committed rape or something like that was gonna be allowed to vote. So all of that, let's include all the violent crimes, all the rape, everything like that, even violent robberies that don't result in a murder or anything like that. The numbers, it's like 15% of the prison population, which I don't think most people know. I think most people learn about prison through TV and movies and think that the prisons are just filled with violent criminals. Now there are a good number, That's certainly the case. But something like 80 to 85% have not done anything violent. They're in there for a number of other crimes, and you probably know that the single biggest category are nonviolent drug offenses. It's like something like 45% for the numbers that I saw earlier today. So when we want to have a conversation about millions of Americans having the ability to more fully participate in American democracy, we don't have that conversation. We have a conversation about, at best, whether 10% of those people should be allowed to vote, and honestly, whether 1 or 2 of those people should be allowed to vote. So if there are tons of people who've been thrown in jail for nonviolent drug offenses, and let's keep it real, in many cases because of the implicit discrimination, bias, and unjust nature of our criminal justice system, forget that, Ted Kaczynski's out there. And do we really want him to vote? And we've gone through all this, it's probably a waste of time to do it again, but first of all, what do we think that those people are going to do with their vote? The handful of people that are the worst examples of what that they would be allowed to vote. What do we think is going to be the consequences of their democratic participation? And how do we think that it is so bad that it should necessarily rule out millions of other people being allowed to vote when they haven't committed any crimes, anything like that small handful of people? And also, as many people have pointed out, if our prison population is so large that we're worried that they could single-handedly throw elections to some sort of other criminal or something like that, maybe we should deal with that problem as well. Okay, maybe that's something we should prioritize as a society. And again, I just want to reiterate this over and over and over again because, look, I didn't watch the full View segment. I have a feeling Meghan McCain did not make this point. A lot of people don't know this. But I've been reading, I've been doing research. Did you know that some people in prison didn't actually commit the crimes they're in there for? Did you know that going back to the beginning of our country, there have been certain types of people that are more likely to be thrown in prison when they didn't actually commit the crime? Did you know that people serve decades and then eventually, thanks to things like the Innocence Project, are released from prison? And that entire time, when they were unjustly deprived of every right, one of which being able to vote, they could have at least had some impact on what was going on there. Maybe actually voting in a way that could have resulted in some sort of representation that would take the threat of people being locked up unjustly more seriously and do something about it. But we don't allow even that. And so again, the View segment from April 24th that we just played is just such a perfect example of how a larger conversation that could be grounded in a bigger conversation about making sure that we have a vibrant democracy that more and more people are participating in, instead has become a wasted opportunity because some people have made it about the Boston bomber or whatever, 1 or 2 other people. And Meghan McCain just jumps in that. That is the only thing that she wants to talk about. If we were to compile a list of the political priorities of Meghan McCain, and we were to just start listing things, at what point would we get to making sure that as many Americans as possible can actually vote? And yet that conversation makes it seem as if that's a thing that she is really thinking about and she's just come out on the other side of the issue. But that's not what I actually believe is going on. And it's really frustrating that this seems like a conversation that we're not gonna have, that other people that might have been inclined to push for something like this, they're gonna be scared off from it because of the conversations going on in places like The View. And that is very depressing. Thank you very much for watching this clip from The Damage Report. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and ring the bell on YouTube to get notifications of our new videos. And of course, you can catch the full Damage Report live every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific on TYT Network on YouTube TV.